আগুন মানব সভ্যতার সৃজন করেছে, আর আগুনের পরশে তৈরি ইস্পাত মানব সভ্যতাকে ধারণ করেছে। ইস্পাতের সূচনা অস্ত্র তৈরিতে, তার নবতম উপহার আমাদের বর্তমান পৃথিবীর যাবতীয় পরিকাঠামো। ইস্পাত ছাড়া ঘরবাড়ি, গগনচুম্বী ইমারত, কলকারখানা কোনো কিছুই সম্ভব নয়। আমরা যখন আগুনকে আমাদের সঙ্গী করেছি, সেই তখন থেকেই মানবসৃষ্ট কার্বন ডাই অক্সাইড ছড়িয়ে পড়তে শুরু করেছে আমাদের পরিবেশে। কিন্তু বিগত অর্ধ শতাব্দীতে যে পরিমাণে দূষণ আমরা বৃদ্ধি করে ফেলেছি, তাতে মানবজাতির অস্তিত্বই এখন সংকটের মুখে। ইস্পাত আমাদের সমৃদ্ধির জন্য অত্যন্ত প্রয়োজনীয়, কিন্তু তার উৎপাদনের প্রক্রিয়ায় যা দূষণ ঘটছে সেটি পৃথিবীর পক্ষে অত্যন্ত ক্ষতিকর। ভারতের মতো উন্নয়নশীল দেশে ইস্পাতের প্রয়োজন নিত্যদিন বাড়ছে, কিন্তু তার সঙ্গে দূষণকে পাল্লা দিয়ে বাড়তে দিলে এই পৃথিবীর হবে চরম ক্ষতি। তাহলে উপায় কি? এই প্রশ্নেরই উত্তর খুঁজতে ভারতের ইস্পাত কারিগরির অন্যতম পত্রিকা স্টিল টেক গত 19শে সেপ্টেম্বর 2024-এ কলকাতায় আয়োজন করেছিল এক আন্তর্জাতিক আলোচনা সভার। বিষয় ছিল টুওয়ার্ডস নেট জিরো ট্রান্সফর্মিং স্টিল। আলোচনা সভায় অংশ নিয়েছিলেন দেশ বিদেশের প্রযুক্তিবিদরা। তারা সকলের সঙ্গে ভাগ করে নিলেন কিভাবে আরও পরিবেশ বান্ধব ইস্পাত তৈরি সম্ভব, কিভাবে পরিবর্তন করা উচিত ইস্পাত উৎপাদন প্রক্রিয়ায়, কিভাবে ইস্পাতকে রিসাইকেল করা যেতে পারে। তথ্য সমৃদ্ধ এই আলোচনা সভায় উপস্থিত ছিলাম আমরাও।
India is also promised to go for net zero 2070. Some of the steel companies are targeting even before that. And as I mentioned, green steel, that is through hydrogen, it is not very the amount to produce and then use. It's years to go, but the people are collaborating with that scale, making it will take some years, but collaborating with the people around the supply chain to make this green steel, and so also many steel companies. So with this brief, I would like to mention that there are big, huge, as you see that even 3 technical sessions are there, with 10 technical 3 presentations. There is panel discussion.
I think Pritish never left any of the domain left out for transforming the steel industry as such to a sustainable one. He covered every domain, whether it is a technology, whether it is a equipment, whether it is research, whether it is innovations, whether it is energy transition, whether it is safety. I think every domains of it. Today I'll give an idea that when you make a steel more greener, and depending on how much carbon intensity you are reducing, the cost also goes up.
Every organization globally, in their small way, they have already got convinced that we must do, a lot of things to sustain the future planet. And therefore, in their own way, they have started working on this, whether it is a conservation of energy, natural resources, carbon neutralization, quality and productivity improvement, and lot of digitization. And I'm sure that with all the initiatives, in maybe another 2 decades or so, we'll be far ahead in our mission, and will be really doing a great job to the nature.
So basically, MEROS and the waste gas recirculation system in combination is a very good package for our sinter plants which are existing, which are running for long and which are old, and we can really make the working conditions quite significantly better. And also the energy consumption, the waste gas recirculation is really, it is able to reduce the fuel rate in the sinter plant, the coke percentage, you know. We have done this type of project executed in JSW, and we have got good results now. One is being executed in Dolvi. So this is really an energy recovery process in combination with a dedusting like Meros. It really gives a good flexibility to the steel producer.
So what we know is that what future we do not want. All efforts are therefore trying to mitigate what could be the harmful effects of carbon impact on future climate changes, etc. So in the field of transportation and supply chain, the entire industry is sieged with similar problems. We don't have solutions ready-made. We are still groping with a lot of it. So I will start and take segment by segment. If you talk about global maritime trade related to steel industry and otherwise as well, the maximum movement happens across the oceans. That is the ships. So IMO, International Maritime Organization, is seized of this situation, and there are already lots of papers and discussion documents on, lots of regulations have come in. But essentially, if you look at it, there are only a few mechanisms which are being thought about. One is how to make the ships more hydrodynamically capable so that it can it can plow through the oceans with least friction. One of the examples is not only the design of the bow that has happened, but more also even people have experimented on the possibilities of the paints that are used so that they can reduce friction.
Supply chain management, SCM, Shastriji has talked something about it, but there are still needs to do a lot because country is now talking about 300 million by 2030. And if we do that, 120 million steel plant capacity expansion in next 5-7 years. So there is a need to have movement of around 400 million ton of material. So the supply chain management will have to play a very important role.
Today at 450 parts per million of CO2 and moving upwards, if we suddenly, by some wave of a wind, suddenly stop all man-made CO2 emission, that is zero, extra man-made, the world temperature will not be limited to the 1.5 degrees centigrade more than the pre-industrial times, which is, if you remember, is the limit that we had set ourselves for 2100 to be sustainable. We are not going there, ladies and gentlemen. We have missed the bus for 1.5. If we go at this rate, we will miss the bus for 2 degrees by 2100. The world will definitely be uninhabitable for my grandchildren and maybe for the younger gentlemen for their grandchildren. We will not be there. But we will not leave a legacy which is palatable. So the increase in man-made CO2 has to be stopped. Everyone does a piece. Power industry is greenifying through renewables. Automotive industry is greenifying through using the renewables and batteries to become more green and environment friendly. We are stuck, and so are some other forms of transportation such as airlines. Airplanes are stuck. Cement is stuck. But we can do our bit as the steel industry. Today we emit about 8% of all man-made CO2, and by the way, man-made CO2 is about 40 gigatons of CO2 per year, and it's increasing. It's becoming 45, it'll become 50. The 450 parts per million of CO2 will become 500 parts per million of CO2. And the temperature difference between pre-industrial area and 2100 will become more than 2 degrees centigrade. What's valid for Northern Europe is not necessarily valid for India, is not necessarily valid for USA. Northern Europe, for example, the Scandinavian countries have green electricity already through hydro. France and parts of Europe have green electricity through nuclear. UK has excess scrap which it exports. US has excess gas at a very low cost. Come to India, we don't have gas. In fact, the amount of gas we import is about the same amount that we make. So our consumption is double our production. And that you can imagine how much, therefore, we are dependent on world prices and world logistics on gas. So what do? We don't have scrap. We don't have gas. We don't have good quality ore. So the horse that we should have for the course of India cannot be the same horse as that for Northern Europe. We have to devise our solutions for our decarbonization. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see that most of the expansion and a rapid expansion that is happening in steel industry in India is through blast furnaces. So we need to deconstruct the blast furnace. And no matter what you do, you may replace coke's function as a reductant by hydrogen or gas. You can even do external heating through many of the efforts that are going on today. But what do you do with the structure? What supports the rest of the burden of the blast furnace? Today, coke does. What will it do in the future? That research hasn't even started. It'll take another 10, 15 years if you start today. So with these thoughts, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you for inviting me here. I think I've run out of my time. I have nothing more to add today. I always promise Mrs. Sen that I'll add something new, and I hope you found something new today. Thank you very much and wish you a fantastic conference.
How to really be practical and calculate that the emissions are considered zero in this unique situation of India. Then we can apply whatever practical technology will be the shortest pathway for the Indian industry to reach or reduce the carbon emission as practically and as quickly as possible. So only biocokes is one example, but through this we can think about how practically we can be, because anyway, there's a word that good feeding before breeding. India has to feed the market of domestic market, which is huge demand there. So at the same time, if we have to go to reduce the CO2 emission, which is not easy at all, practical proven technology not introduced should be introduced. But at the same time, we have to think about what really is CO2 emission, is how counted. Through that practical way of thinking, and what the consumer has to be aware. Those two approaches will bring us to the quickly and practical solution for this country, I believe. Thank you.
স্টিল টেকটা শুরু করেছিলাম এক্স টাটা সেল ইঞ্জিনিয়ার্স। স্টিল টেক খুব নাম করেছে টেকনিক্যাল কন্টেন্টসের জন্য, এবং যেগুলো সমসাময়িক সমস্যা টেকনোলজিক্যাল স্টিল প্ল্যান্টস রিলেটেড, সেগুলো আমরা প্রতি বছরে একবার সেপ্টেম্বরে নর্মালি আমরা সেমিনার করি। এবছরে সাস্টেনেবল টেকনোলজি টুয়ার্ডস গ্রিন স্টিল মেকিং নিয়ে আমরা করেছি। আমরা খুব খুশি যে বিভিন্ন স্টিল প্ল্যান্ট, টেকনোলজি প্রোভাইডার, দেশি এবং বিদেশি সবাই এখানে আসতে পেরেছেন এবং তাদের বক্তব্য শেয়ার করেছেন।
Our perspective, we have checked, the future readiness of the steel plant will depend on usage of low-grade ores, then the reducing the emissions, and the third one is energy recovery. The way you can recover the energy which is there means that will be very helpful so that wastage is not there. Now currently, if you know, we are following a route which is basically BF-BOF route. That is, hot metal source is either from BF or from Codex and Phoenix, and then we put them into converter and get steel. Now, Primetal's thinking is that the future will be through DR, and then there is a process called Hydex and HYFOR, and then it will be going to the EAF route. Now, in the EAF route, also we divided into two parts. One part is that if the ore is of low grade, then we have developed one technology called smelter, which is an intermediate step, and then from smelter it will go to a converter. And if it's a high grade, then it will be directly to the UF.
So steel has been selected to be the right place where we need to touch upon corrections in technology and stipulations. Well, as all of us know, steel forms a significant contribution in terms of carbon, about 8 to 10% of whatever greenhouse gases that are being produced. And in terms of GDP, it contributes more than 2% to the country's GDP. In terms of output effect, on the economy, it's about 1.5x. And in terms of employment multiplier, it is standing at around 6.8 or 7x. So we have reasons to touch upon steel as far as this audience is concerned. Cement is another big thing, power is another big thing, and so is mining.
The whole gamut of ESG, environment, social and governance. And we are only talking about environment today, and that too of only decarbonization, which is one of the area, which could be water, could be biodiversity. Within environment, there are a number of things to be done by each of the company. In the area of social, whether it's human rights for the rights holders, or safety, communities, so there are a lot of work in the social area, in the governance area. And the companies are being forced to work in these areas because the rating agencies, the ESG rating agencies are rating companies, and the scores, if it is bad, then the interest rates for the banks are going up. So everything is area that we need to work upon. And today we are talking about decarbonization of green steel, and it's, as Dr. Patel says, it's one of the challenge. And it's a hard to abate sector because we use coal not only as an energy, but as a reductant. It's used in blast furnace as a reducing agent. So sectors like automotive, sectors like power industry, it is only a fuel, it's energy. So it's very easy to change from one to, say, solar. But it's very difficult to change a blast furnace route to another route because you use coal as a reductant.
The future readiness of steel industry, we should focus from two different angles because the integrated steel plants are giants. They have muscle power to get good raw material. The issues and problems are different for them. But if we have to be future ready, we must focus on secondary steel producers, more particularly induction furnace steel producers, which contribute to around 30% of Indian steel production of 120 million. So that is important. So at Jamipol, we have looked at these two segments of our customers differently.
আমরা এবছর স্টিল টেকের 18তম সেমিনার করছি। আমাদের এবছরের সেমিনার খুব ভালোভাবে হচ্ছে, এখনও চলছে, এবং এবছর আমাদের টেকনিক্যাল কন্টেন্ট ওয়াইজ এবং পার্টিসিপেন্ট ওয়াইজ একটা নতুন লক্ষ্যমাত্রায় পৌঁছতে পেরেছি আমরা। যারা এসছেন সকলেই খুব ভালো বলেছেন এবং ভালো অ্যাপ্রিসিয়েট করেছেন আমাদের প্রোগ্রাম, এবং তার জন্য আমরা তাদের কাছে কৃতজ্ঞ।
See, the Indian steel industry is driven, everybody knows that, by climate change. And we have problems which have compounded this, like CBAM and also the German one, LESS. So there are problems. The point is that if you try to analyze these problems, you come to some sort of directions which are immediately not clear if you just look at the presentations. For example, I did some calculations with the entire steel scenario, did some carbon balance and everything with the flow sheets which were available integrated and the secondary sector. Found out something very interesting, which drives really the decarbonization potential.
The operator looks up and recommended action. Alex advises the maintenance engineers to check the proper lubrication. So gearbox lubrication is missing for some reason. So the maintenance engineer is there, for example, and he fixes this. There are recommended actions which is also given in the central operation cockpit to check proper lubrication of the gearbox. If we look at the central operation cockpit here, we can see that it minimizes the manual intervention. Everything is done fully automatically. These are different connected systems. The asset light expert, digital assistants connected to the central operating system.
Come to cement, pyro processing kilns, the grinding mills, we do FIVS FCB. So there are different entities. When you come to energy, FIVS combustion, FIVS Pillard, FIVS North American burners, you must have heard these names. So they are in the energy divisions and doing burners for all process plants, either it's steel, chemical, fertilizer, everywhere. Then steel and glass, so we will speak about steel and glass, what we do. Automated solution, that is third division of FIVS group. So automated solution, they look after the intralogistics. Like DHL is one of our biggest customer in this wing, intralogistics. Maintenance, piping solution, AI, data processing, so it's total a service wing, I would say, it's a fourth group. So you can see FIVS is an industrial engineering group having more than 200 years of history. So now this gives about FIVS, so this is a picture of our customer base. So you can see Airbus, Boeing, the customers for the high precision tools, and here you have all the steel producers for process technologies.
Important that when scrap is available, we can preheat the scrap and use into the electric arc furnaces. We call it corn steel, and that is more than 100 of references across the globe. Scrap processing is not required at all here. Whatever scrap is there, that can be charged. But the challenge with the scrap, as we all know, that we cannot make the quality steel because of the tramp element and the copper present there. And another is that scrap is not available. So what is the solution? Of course, the solution is not go with the blast furnace. The solution is to go with the DRI. And DRI also, they should have the flexibility to use any type of gases. That is called our energy run, in which any type of gases, what we mean to say, whether it is a natural gas, reformed gas, syngas, hydrogen. And to begin with, in India, like in Chinese already, they have commissioned the 2 plants that is starting with the cocoa 1 gas. And once the cocoa, with the 100% cocoa 1 gas, they have already commissioned it. And with the development of the hydrogen or the natural gas, it can be shifted because there is no change of the process scheme.
I would like to bring the Indian context here. Most companies, net zero targets, they only account for scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. While I was doing some research on the subject, this was something that also, it was a new thing to me. It was a surprise element. And this data, which is basically CDP data, it says that the companies that are today, disclosing their emissions, only 31% of the companies are actually including scope 3 in their emission scope. Rest of the companies, which is a bigger percentage of 69%, they fall outside the, they don't disclose voluntarily their scope 3 targets.
So, আমরা বেসিক্যালি স্টিল এবং ফেরালাইজের উপরেই আমরা সেমিনার করি এবং সেই সংক্রান্ত আমাদের প্রত্যেকটা কোয়ার্টারলি ম্যাগাজিনেও পাবলিশ করা হয়। এখন অন্যান্য যারা সেমিনার হয় তার সঙ্গে একটাই ডিফারেন্স হচ্ছে আমরা একটা সার্টেন স্ট্যান্ডার্ড মেনটেন করি যাতে আমরা কমার্শিয়াল অ্যাসপেক্টটা অত করি না, টাচ করি না। আমরা টাচ করি প্রসেসের ওপরে, আমরা টাচ করি কী করে আরও বেটার কোয়ালিটি করা যায়, কী করে ইন্ডাস্ট্রি 4.0 এবং এখন 5.0 অবধি আমরা যাচ্ছি, সেই স্টেজে আসা যায়, এটাই আমাদের উদ্দেশ্য।
আমি দূরদর্শন কলকাতাকে ধন্যবাদ জানাই যে আমাদের এই স্টিল টেক সেমিনারটা কভার করার জন্যে। ওনারা আগেও কভার করেছেন, কারণ এই টাইপের সেমিনার যেটা আমাদের এই যে সাস্টেনেবিলিটির উপর সেমিনার যেটা আজকে দেখছেন, দিস ইজ 18th ইন দ্য সিরিজ। আমরা দেখবেন এই টাইপের সেমিনার বেশিরভাগ বিদেশে হয়, তা নাহলে হয়তো কিছুটা বম্বে আর দিল্লিতে করে। এরকম টাইপের সেমিনার এই ইস্টার্ন রিজিয়নে প্রায় হয় না বললেই চলে। সেই জন্য আমরা চেষ্টা করি এই রাইট ফ্রম ডক্টর অমিত চ্যাটার্জি, যিনি চিফ এডিটর ছিলেন সিলটেকের, উনি শুরু করেছিলেন, তারপর বিং কন্টিনিউড উইথ মিস্টার বিপি সরকার ইজ দ্য চিফ মেন্টর, তারপরে আমরা কোনো ইয়েতে কন্টিনিউ করে যাচ্ছি। দিস ইজ দ্য 18th ইন দ্য সিরিজ। আর আমাদের এই টাইপের সেমিনারটা খুবই পপুলার বলতে গেলে এই জন্যে যে দেশ বিদেশ থেকে, দেশের থেকে তো আসে, বিদেশ থেকেও লোকজন আসে এটাতে, এই সেমিনারে পার্টিসিপেট করার জন্যে। আর এইটা এমনই একটা সাবজেক্ট যেটা কি not only here, all over the world it is being discussed about the sustainability, steel sector.